The Galactic Council chamber floated in the darkness of space like a giant wheel of light. Inside, representatives from 43 different species sat in their assigned seats. The air felt heavy with tension. Everyone knew something big was about to happen. Ambassador stood near the human section, his hands clasped behind his back. He had represented Earth for 3 years now, but he had never seen the council this quiet. The usual whispers and side conversations had stopped completely. All eyes focused on the center platform where the delegation stood. They were tall, reaching nearly 8 feet in height. Their skin looked like dark red armor, covered in natural plates that clicked together when they moved. 4 arms hung from their massive torsos, each one thick with muscle. Their faces had no nose, just slits that opened and closed as they breathed. 2 large eyes, completely black, scanned the room with obvious contempt. Commander stepped forward. He wore the marks of a military leader, with glowing symbols carved into his chest plates. When he spoke, his voice came out like gravel grinding against metal. "Humans," he said, letting the word hang in the air like an insult. "You sit in this council as equals. You claim the same rights as species who have traveled the stars for thousands of years. But what have you proven? You are weak. You are soft. You come from a small world and you have done nothing to earn your place here." Felt his jaw tighten, but he said nothing. He had been trained for moments like this. Never show emotion. Never give them a reason to call humans unstable. Continued. "The Empire challenges humanity. We demand a trial by combat. One of your warriors against one of ours. If you win, you keep your seat. If you lose, you leave this council and never return." A murmur ran through the chamber. Several species looked uncomfortable. The representative, a floating being made of light, spoke up. "Commander, trial by combat has not been used in over 200 years. The practice is considered outdated." "But not forbidden," shot back. "The old laws still stand. Any species may challenge another through combat if they question their right to be here. I question the humans, they must answer." High Arbiter rose from her seat. She was with silver skin and 3 sets of arms. She served as the council's judge and had the final say in all legal matters. Her voice carried across the chamber with calm authority. "They are correct. The law permits trial by combat. The terms are simple. Each side chooses one representative. They fight in the arena until one surrenders or dies. Any method is allowed within the boundaries. Does humanity accept this challenge?" Felt his stomach drop. He looked around the chamber, searching for support, but most species avoided his gaze. Some looked sympathetic, but sympathy would not help them now. They had planned this carefully. They knew Earth's military forces were good, but they also knew humans could not match strength in hand-to-hand combat. "We need time to consider," said, his voice steady despite the panic rising in his chest. "You have 24 hours, declared. "Return with your answer and your champion if you choose to fight." The council session ended and rushed back to the human quarters. He immediately opened a secure communication line to Earth. Within minutes, the faces of military generals and government officials filled his screen. "They want combat," explained, packing back and forth. "One-on-one, their champion against ours." General William Clark, head of Earth's Space Forces, shook his head. "We have good soldiers, Ambassador, the best, but the train from birth to fight. Their biology gives them advantages we cannot match. 4 arms, natural armor, strength 3 times that of a human. Whoever we send will likely die." "So we refuse?" asked, knowing the answer. "If we refuse, we lose our council seat anyway," another official said. "We look like cowards. Every species in the galaxy will see us as weak." The discussion went on for hours. Names were suggested. Special Forces soldiers, combat experts, enhanced fighters with cybernetic upgrades, but everyone knew the truth. They were choosing who would die, not who would win. Then a message came through on his personal line. The sender was listed as frowned. He did not recognize the name. He opened it anyway. "Ambassador," the message read, "I am volunteering to be Earth's champion. I have military experience and I understand what needs to be done. Please forward my service record to the generals. I am already on my way to the station." Pulled up her file. His eyes went wide. Age 73, retired colonel. 50 years of military service, decorated strategist, multiple commendations for tactical planning, but she was 73 years old. She was a grandmother. "This is a joke," General Clark said when showed him the file. "We cannot send a grandmother to fight a warrior. It would be murder." But as they read through her record, the room grew quiet. had served in conflicts across 3 decades. She had planned operations that saved thousands of lives. She had trained soldiers in strategy and combat psychology. Her mind was sharp, even if her body was old. "She knows she will lose," someone said softly. "She is volunteering to die so that we look brave instead of cowardly." Felt sick, but another message came through, this one a video call. His face appeared on the screen. She had short gray hair and kind eyes. Wrinkles lined her face, marking decades of life. She wore a simple shirt and smiled like she was talking to an old friend. She said, "I know what you are thinking, but I am not volunteering to die. I am volunteering to win. Trust me, I know what I am doing." Mrs. began, but she cut him off. "Colonel," she corrected gently. "I earned that rank, and I earned the right to choose how I serve humanity one more time. I will be at the station in 12 hours. Have the paperwork ready." The call ended. The room erupted in argument, but in the end they had no better option. Was a volunteer, she was a decorated officer, and she was a human adult making her own choice. 20 hours later stood in the council chamber again. They had brought their champion, a massive warrior named Eth. He stood over 8 feet tall, covered in battle scars. His forearms held weapons that looked like they could cut through steel. He had never lost a fight. He had killed representatives from 12 different species. "Where is your champion?" demanded, his voice full of mockery. The doors opened. Walked in pulling a small wheeled suitcase behind her. She wore comfortable pants and a light jacket. Her gray hair was neatly combed. She looked like someone's grandmother heading on vacation. The burst into laughter. Several other species gasped, closed his eyes, wondering if he had just helped condemn a good woman to death. Walked calmly to the center platform. She looked up at Eth, who towered over her. She smiled warmly. "Hello, dear," she said. "My name is. I hope we can keep this civil." Eth stared down at her, confusion mixing with contempt. "You are their warrior." "I am their representative," replied. "And before we begin, would it be all right if I set up my things? I brought some items that might make this more comfortable." The warrior looked at Commander, unsure how to respond. No opponent had ever asked to get comfortable before. Dawn came to the station, though the artificial lights made it hard to tell the difference. The arena sat at the center of the council station, a massive dome that could hold 50,000 spectators. Every seat was filled. Species from across the galaxy had come to watch the human representative fight the undefeated champion. The arena itself spread out like a small world. Trees grew in one section, their leaves reaching toward the dome's ceiling. Rocky cliffs rose up in another area, creating caves and climbing surfaces. A stream ran through the middle, feeding into a small lake. The designers had created the space to test fighters in every type of environment. Sat in the human observation box, his hands gripping the armrests so hard his knuckles turned white. Lisa Palmer, a human technician, sat next to him, monitoring the arena systems on a portable screen. "All boundaries are active," she reported quietly. "Energy fields mark the out-of-bounds zones. If either fighter crosses them, they lose automatically." Nodded but said nothing. His eyes stayed fixed on the arena floor below. A horn sounded deep and resonant. The crowd fell silent. From the east entrance, Eth emerged. The warrior had dressed in full ceremonial armor, black plates that covered his chest and legs. His forearms each held a weapon. 2 carried energy blades that hummed with power. The other 2 gripped plasma pistols. His face showed no emotion, only cold determination. He marched to the center of the arena and raised all 4 arms to the crowd. The section erupted in cheers. The horn sounded again. From the west entrance appeared. She wore the same comfortable pants and jacket from yesterday. Her wheeled suitcase came behind her along with something else. She carried a folding chair under one arm. The crowd murmured in confusion. Walked slowly across the arena floor, taking her time. She seemed completely unaware of the thousands of eyes watching her. When she reached a spot near the tree line, where the morning sun from the dome's lights hit the ground warmly, she stopped. She set down her suitcase and opened the folding chair. It made a soft click as she locked it in place. Then she sat down with a small sigh of relief, like someone settling in for a pleasant afternoon. Eth stared at her from across the arena. His black eyes narrowed in confusion and anger. High Arbiter's voice echoed through the dome. "The trial by combat begins now. Fight until one surrenders or cannot continue. May honor guide you both." Eth did not wait. He charged across the arena, his four arms spreading wide as he ran. His feet pounded the ground like thunder. He covered the distance in seconds, his energy blades raised to strike. Did not stand, she did not even look up. Instead, she reached into her suitcase and pulled out two long metal needles and a ball of soft blue yarn. She began to knit, her hands moving in a steady, practiced rhythm. The crowd gasped, leaned forward, his heart racing. Lisa looked at him with wide eyes. What is she doing? Eth skidded to a stop 5 feet from. His weapons remained raised, but he did not strike. He could not understand what he was seeing. No warrior had ever ignored him before. No opponent had ever sat down and started knitting. Stand up, he growled. Face me. Looked up from her knitting, her expression pleasant and calm. Oh, I am sorry, dear. I did not mean to be rude. Would you like some tea? I brought a thermos. She set down her knitting and reached into her suitcase again. She pulled out a silver thermos and unscrewed the top, releasing a small puff of steam. The smell of hot tea drifted across the arena. Eth took a step back, his weapons lowering slightly. What are you doing? This is combat. This is a fight to prove your worth. I know what it is, said kindly. She poured tea into the thermos cap, which doubled as a cup. But there is no rule that says I must rush into things. Would you like some? It is chamomile, very soothing. The warrior's 4 hands clenched into fists. I do not want your tea, I want a fight. Well, said, taking a sip from her cup. If you want a fight, go ahead. I will be right here when you are ready to talk instead. She set down the tea and picked up her knitting again. Her needles clicked together softly as she worked on what looked like a baby blanket. Eth raised his energy blade again. He stepped forward, ready to end this strange situation with a single strike. But as he moved, he noticed something, had positioned herself carefully. The boundary line of the arena ran directly behind her chair. If he swung his blade, the arc would cross the out-of-bounds zone, an automatic disqualification. He stopped again, his mind racing. She had not just sat down randomly. She had chosen this exact spot with precision. You cannot hide behind the boundaries forever, he said. I am not hiding, replied, counting stitches on her needles. I am simply getting comfortable. Combat is exhausting, you know. At my age, I need to pace myself. She reached into her suitcase once more and pulled out a metal tin. She opened it to reveal cookies, round and golden brown. The smell of vanilla and butter filled the air. I baked these yesterday, she said. Chocolate chip, would you like one? Eth felt something he had never experienced in combat before. Complete bewilderment. He had trained his entire life to fight. He understood tactics and strategy. He knew how to read an opponent's movements and exploit their weaknesses. But this old human woman was not following any pattern he recognized. This is disrespectful, he said, his voice rising. You mock me, you mock the honor. Looked up at him with genuine surprise. Mock you? Oh no, dear, I am showing you respect. I am treating you like a person, not an enemy. There is a difference. She stood up slowly, her old joints making her movements careful. She walked 3 steps forward, still holding the cookie tin. Now she stood in neutral territory, away from the boundary lines. Here, she said, holding out the tin. Please take one. Fighting on an empty stomach is never a good idea. Eth looked down at the cookies, then back at her face. Her expression showed no fear, no calculation, just simple, genuine kindness. It confused him more than any battle strategy could have. I do not understand you, he said quietly. That is all right, replied. We have time. The rules say we fight until someone surrenders, but they do not say how long that takes. We could be here for days if we want. She returned to her chair and sat down again, putting the cookie tin on top of her suitcase within easy reach. She picked up her knitting and continued working. An hour passed, then 2. The crowd grew restless. Some species began to leave, bored by the lack of action. The section shouted insults, demanding that Eth kill the old woman and be done with it. But Eth did not move. He stood 15 feet from, watching her knit. His weapons hung at his sides. His mind worked through the problem she presented. Every warrior he had ever fought came at him with strength. They tried to match his power, to overcome his 4 arms and natural armor through superior skill or better weapons. They all failed because they played the game on his terms. This human woman refused to play the game at all. Began to hum softly, a gentle melody that drifted through the arena. She seemed completely content, as if she were sitting in her own home instead of a combat zone. You really are not going to fight, are you? Ed asked finally. Paused her knitting and looked at him thoughtfully. I did not say that. I said I would not rush. There is a difference. Tell me something, Ed. What do you think will happen if you kill me? The question caught him off guard. The will win, humans will lose their council seat. Yes, agreed. But what will you win? Will the other species respect the more? Will they trust you? Will they want to work with you? Ed had no answer. Set down her knitting and stood up again. She walked toward him slowly, her hands empty and open. She stopped 5 feet away, well within striking distance of his blades. Or will they fear you? She continued. Will they see thee as nothing more than violent bullies who solve every problem with force? We are warriors, Ed said, but his voice lacked conviction. Strength is what matters in this galaxy. Is it? Asked softly. Then why are there 43 species on the council instead of just one? If strength was all that mattered, the strongest would rule everyone else. But they do not, because there are other kinds of strength, wisdom, patience, the ability to build bridges instead of burning them. She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a small photo. She held it up for him to see. 5 young human children smiled at the camera, their faces bright with joy. 4 hours had passed since the combat began. The arena crowd had thinned to less than half. Most species saw nothing worth watching. An old human woman sat in a chair, knitting. A warrior stood nearby, no longer even holding his weapons ready. It looked more like 2 people passing time than a fight to the death. Had not moved from his seat. His eyes burned from staring, but he could not look away. Lisa Palmer checked her monitors every few minutes, but there was nothing to report. No combat, no movement, just sitting peacefully and Ed standing in confused silence. In the observation box, Commander slammed his fist against the railing. What is he doing? He roared. Why does he not end this? His advisors had no answer. They had watched Ed fight dozens of times. They had seen him tear through opponents with brutal efficiency. This hesitation was completely unlike him. Down in the arena had moved her chair to follow the sun. She now sat near the small lake, her feet propped up on her suitcase. She had finished the baby blanket she was knitting and started on what looked like a scarf. Her needles clicked steadily, the sound oddly peaceful in the huge space. Ed had followed her. He sat on a rock 10 feet away, his 4 arms resting on his knees. He had not put down his weapons, but he had lowered them. His black eyes watched his hands move with the yarn. Do you have children? Asked suddenly, breaking the long silence. Ed looked up. Why do you ask? Because I am curious, said simply. I have been talking this whole time about but I do not know anything about you. It seems unfair. The warrior was quiet for a long moment. No opponent had ever asked him a personal question before. I have 3 younglings, he said finally, 2 boys and 1 girl. Smiled, that is wonderful. How old are they? The boys are 7 cycles, twins. The girl is 4 cycles old. Twins, said warmly. That must keep you busy. Are they interested in becoming warriors like their father? Ed's expression shifted, something close to sadness crossing his face. The boys train every day. It is expected. All males must become warriors. Must, repeated gently. What if they wanted to be something else? There is nothing else, Ed said. Not for males, warriors, or nothing. Set down her knitting and looked at him directly. And your daughter? Females raise the young and manage the home stations. She will learn these things when she is older. But what if she wanted to be a warrior? Asked. What if your boys wanted to be teachers or engineers or artists? Ed stood up abruptly. You do not understand culture. These roles have existed for thousands of years. They are who we are. No, said quietly but firmly. They are who you were told to be. There is a difference. She stood up as well, leaving her knitting on the chair. She walked to the edge of the lake and looked at the water. The artificial sun made it sparkle. Let me tell you a story, she said. When I was young, humans had very strict rules about what women could do. We were told we could be nurses but not doctors, teachers but not principals. We could serve in the military but not in combat roles. People said this was just how things were. This was our culture. This was natural. She turned back to face Ed. But it was not natural. It was just fear. Fear that if women had choices, they might choose something different. Fear that the old ways might not be the best ways. What happened? Ed asked despite himself. Women fought for the right to choose, said. Not with weapons, with words and persistence, and by proving we could do anything men could do. It took time, it was hard. But now human women can be anything, soldiers, leaders, scientists, anything. And our society is stronger because of it. Ed sat back down on his rock. The way has kept us strong for thousands of years. Has it? Asked. You are strong in combat, yes, but what else? What art do they create? What scientific discoveries? What alliances do you build? From what I have seen, other species avoid you. They fear you, but they do not like you. Is that truly strength? The warrior had no answer. He had never thought about such things before. He was raised to fight, to win, to prove superiority through combat. But this old human woman asked questions that made his certainty crumble. Returned to her chair and picked up the photo of her again. My oldest grandson wants to be a dancer, she said, looking at the picture fondly. My granddaughter wants to study alien languages. The twins want to open a restaurant together. And the youngest is not sure yet. She is only 5. She has time to figure it out. And you allow this? Ed asked. Allow, laughed softly. I encourage it. I want them to be happy, not to fit into boxes that someone else made for them. That is what love means, wanting the best for someone even if it looks different than what you expected. She looked up at the warrior. Do you love your children, Eth? His 4 hands clenched. Of course I do. Then ask yourself this, said. If your daughter came to you and said she wanted to be a warrior, would you stop her? If your sons said they wanted to be healers or engineers, would you tell them no? Would you force them into roles they did not choose, knowing it might make them unhappy? Eth stood and turned away from her, his shoulders tensed. You are trying to confuse me, trying to weaken my resolve. No, said. I am trying to help you think, because right now you stand at a choice. You can kill me and prove that are the stronger fighters. Everyone already knows this. It will change nothing, or you can choose something different. What choice? He demanded, spinning back to face her. The challenge was issued, the combat must be finished. Stood up and walked toward him. She moved slowly, her old bones careful on the rocky ground. She stopped right in front of him, close enough that he could kill her with a single strike. You can choose to understand that there are different kinds of strength, she said. The kind that destroys and the kind that builds, the kind that takes lives and the kind that protects them. Your children are watching this, Eth. Somewhere on your home world they will hear what happened here. What do you want them to learn from you? The warrior looked down at her. This small, old, fragile human who refused to fight him, who instead talked about children and choices and asked him questions no one had ever asked before. I do not know, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. That is all right, said gently. Not knowing is the first step to learning. Here, sit with me, let me show you something. She walked back to her chair and pulled out the cookie tin again. This time, when she opened it and held it out to Eth, he hesitated for only a moment. Then one of his 4 hands reached out and took a cookie. He bit into it carefully. The sweetness and warmth surprised him. This is good, he said. Thank you, replied, taking one for herself. My grandmother taught me the recipe. I have been making them for 50 years now. I make them for when they visit. It is one of the ways I show them I love them. Small gestures, simple kindness. They ate in silence for a while. Above them, the crowd murmured in confusion. This was not combat. This was not what anyone had expected. Commander activated the communication channel to the arena floor. His voice boomed through the speakers. Eth, this is a disgrace. You shame yourself and all. End this now or I will send others to finish it. Eth looked up at the observation boxes. He could see his commander's face twisted with anger. For the first time in his life, that anger did not move him. He looked back at who sat calmly eating her cookie. What would you do? He asked her. Finished chewing and brushed crumbs from her lap. I would ask myself what I believed in, really believed in deep down, not what I was told to believe, and then I would have the courage to act on it no matter what others thought. The afternoon sun in the arena dome began to dim as the station's systems shifted to evening mode. Had been in the arena for nearly 8 hours. She had knitted 2 complete projects, eaten lunch from containers she brought in her suitcase, and talked with Eth about everything from military strategy to the best way to cook vegetables. Had long since stopped worrying that would be killed. Now he worried about what would happen when the council lost patience with this strange non-combat. Lisa Palmer had reported 3 times that council members were demanding action. Commander had sent 4 messages to Eth, each one more threatening than the last. The warrior ignored them all. He sat on the ground near Sh's chair, all four of his arms relaxed. He looked like a student listening to a teacher, not a champion preparing to kill. High Arbiter's voice echoed through the arena. This trial has continued for 8 hours with no progress toward resolution. The council grows concerned that neither fighter intends to fulfill the terms of combat. Stood up from her chair, her joints cracking softly. She looked up at the council observation platform. With respect, High Arbiter, there was no time limit placed on this trial. We are both still present in the arena. Neither of us has surrendered. We are following the rules exactly as they were stated. Paused. The spirit of trial by combat requires actual combat. Does it? Asked, her voice carrying clearly through the arena. Or does it require two representatives to face each other until one proves superior? Combat is one way to prove superiority, but it is not the only way. Murmurs ran through the remaining crowd. Several species began arguing among themselves. The section erupted in shouts of anger. Commander stood up in his observation box. Enough of this mockery. Eth, you will end this now or face charges of cowardice and treason. Eth rose to his feet. He picked up his weapons from where they lay on the ground. For a moment's heart stopped. This was it. The warrior would finally kill to save his own honor. But Eth did not turn toward. He turned toward the observation box and looked directly at his commander. No, he said simply. The word hung in the air like a bomb. His face twisted with rage. What did you say? I said no, Eth repeated, his voice stronger. I will not kill this human. She has shown me more honor in 8 hours than you have shown in your entire command. She treats me like a person with thoughts and choices. You treat me like a weapon to be pointed at your enemies. The arena fell completely silent. Every species watching understood the significance of what was happening. A warrior was refusing a direct order from his commander. This had never happened before in recorded galactic history. You dare defy me? Roared. You will be executed for this. Your family will be stripped of all honor. Eth's 4 hands tightened on his weapons, but not in preparation to fight. Then execute me. But I will not kill someone who has done nothing wrong. I will not kill someone who has shown me kindness and asked me to think about what kind of warrior I want to be. Walked up beside Eth. She barely reached his chest, this tiny old human standing next to the massive alien warrior. Commander, she called up to the observation box. Your warrior has already defeated me. He has proven that strength includes the ability to choose mercy over violence. That is a much more impressive victory than simply killing an old woman. Mercy is weakness, spat. Is it? Asked. Then why do the most powerful species in this council practice it? They could destroy most worlds with their technology, but they choose diplomacy. They could manipulate minds, but they choose to serve as fair judges. True power is choosing not to use your strength to harm others. Your warrior understands this now. High Arbiter stood up, her 6 arms spread wide as she addressed the arena. This situation is unprecedented. The trial by combat has not concluded in traditional fashion. The council must deliberate on how to proceed. While you deliberate, Commander said coldly, I will take matters into my own hands. He pressed a control on his armrest. Suddenly, panels opened in the arena walls. Gun turrets emerged, their barrels glowing with energy. They swiveled toward the arena floor, targeting both and Eth. If my warrior will not do his duty, announced, then I will ensure humanity is defeated regardless. Lisa Palmer's screens lit up with warnings. He has activated the arena's security weapons. Those are designed to stop riots, not for combat trials. They are going to kill both of them. Jumped up. This is a violation of the rules. Those weapons cannot be used during an official trial. But his words meant nothing. The turrets began charging, a high-pitched whine filling the arena, and Eth had seconds before the weapons fired. Eth grabbed with 2 of his arms and ran. His powerful legs covered ground in huge strides. The first blast of energy hit where they had been standing, scorching the earth black. Where are the safe zones? Eth shouted as he ran. Pointed toward a cluster of large rocks. There, the turrets cannot angle down far enough to hit behind those. They dove behind the rocks as another blast hit nearby. The heat washed over them, making the air shimmer. Eth sat down carefully, then positioned himself between her and the direction of the turrets. This is not how combat works, he said, breathing hard. Your commander has broken the sacred rules. Yes, agreed, checking to make sure she was not hurt. which means we are no longer in a trial by combat. We are in a survival situation, and in those, what matters most is working together. Another blast hit the rocks above them. Pieces of stone rained down. The turrets were adjusting their aim, trying to find an angle that would reach them. Looked around quickly, her military training taking over. How many energy shots can your shields absorb? Ed looked at the devices on his arms. Perhaps 3 or 4 at this power level. Not enough, said. She pointed to a section of the arena about 50 yards away. See that maintenance access door? If we can reach it, we can shut down the turret system from inside, but we have to cross open ground. You cannot move fast enough, Ed said. The turrets will kill you before we make it halfway. Smiled, then you will have to carry me. Can you run and use your weapons at the same time? Ed looked at her with what might have been admiration. Yes, but you must tell me when to move and where to go. I am good at fighting, but you are good at strategy. Deal, said. She watched the pattern of the turret fire, counting the seconds between each blast. Her mind calculated angles and timing the way it had done hundreds of times in combat situations decades ago. When I say run, go straight for 10 seconds, then cut right behind that fallen tree. Then wait for my signal. Ed gathered into his lower 2 arms, keeping his upper 2 free to hold weapons and shields. Ready. Watch the turrets fire another round. She counted 3, 4, 5. Run. Ed burst from behind the rocks, his legs pumping. Energy blasts tore through the air around them. His shields flared as one hit caught him but held. 10 seconds exactly, then he cut right, sliding behind the fallen tree just as another blast scorched the ground where he would have been. Wait, said, watching the turrets recalibrate. They are adjusting to predict our movement. We need to be unpredictable. Next, go left for 3 seconds, then straight for 5, then left again for 4. Can you remember that? Yes. Go. They moved in bursts, calling out directions while Ed ran and returned fire at the turrets when he could. His shots were not strong enough to destroy the weapons, but they disrupted their aim. Strategy kept them moving in patterns the automated systems could not predict. A blast hit Ed's shield straight on. It flickered and went dark. Shield is gone, he reported, his voice strained. 30 feet to the door, said. We can make it. Straight line, maximum speed. Do not stop even if they hit you. Your armor will protect you better than trying to dodge now. Ed did not question her. He ran straight for the maintenance door, his body covering completely. 2 blasts hit his back. His armor cracked but held. The pain was intense, but he kept running. They crashed through the door, tumbling into the maintenance corridor. Ed sat down and collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. His back armor showed scorch marks and cracks. Are you all right? Asked, checking him over with concerned eyes. I will live, Ed said. Your plan worked. Moved to the control panel on the wall. Her fingers flew over the buttons. Let me see. These systems are standard across most council stations. Ah, here, emergency shutdown for arena weapons. She pressed a series of commands. The high-pitched whine of the turrets outside stopped. The arena fell silent. Turrets are offline, she said with satisfaction. She looked at Ed, who was struggling to stand. Stay down, you are hurt. We are safe for now. We worked well together, Ed said, a note of surprise in his voice. You commanded and I followed. It felt right. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with urgent conversation. Every seat was filled again, but this time no one looked bored. What had started as a simple trial by combat had become something much bigger. A warrior had refused orders from his commander. That same commander had attempted to murder both fighters during a sacred trial. The rules of combat had been broken by the very species that demanded the trial in the first place. High Arbiter called for order, her 6 arms raised. The chamber fell silent. Commander, she said, her voice cold with anger. You have violated the most sacred laws of trial by combat. You attempted to kill both participants using weapons that are forbidden during official trials. You have dishonored not only yourself but your entire species. What do you have to say? Stood in the section, his 4 arms crossed over his chest. He showed no shame, only defiance. I acted to preserve honor. My warrior failed in his duty. He showed weakness. I sought to correct his failure. By trying to kill him, asked. By attempting to murder the human representative after you yourself demanded this trial, you have no honor left to preserve, Commander. Council security forces surrounded. He tried to resist, but they were prepared. Within moments they had him in restraints. "You will be transported back to your home world to face judgment from your own people," declared, "and the Empire will answer to this council for your crimes." As they led away, he shouted back at the chamber, "They will never accept this. We will not be lectured by weak species who hide behind words instead of proving their worth through strength." The doors closed behind him, cutting off his voice. Turned her attention to the arena floor where an Eth stood. Medical teams had treated the warrior's injuries. His back armor had been removed, showing bandages underneath. Stood beside him, looking tired but determined. "The trial by combat cannot continue as originally planned," announced. "Commander's interference has made that impossible. The Council must now decide how to resolve the original challenge. Does humanity deserve to keep its seat on this council?" A representative from the species stood up. His people looked like tall insects with multiple eyes. "The human showed no combat ability. She spent 8 hours avoiding the fight. How does this prove humans belong here?" Raised her hand, asking for permission to speak. Nodded. "I spent 8 hours proving something much more important," said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "I proved that humans think beyond violence. I proved we can turn enemies into allies through conversation and understanding. And when violence did come, I proved we can work together with other species to survive." She gestured to Eth. "This warrior and I had to cooperate to escape the turrets. He provided strength and protection. I provided strategy and planning. Together, we succeeded. Separately, we both would have died. That is what the Galactic Council should value. Not which species can kill the best, but which species can build bridges and find solutions." A representative from the beings made of light spoke next. "The human makes a valid point. We formed this council specifically to move beyond might makes right thinking. If we allow combat trials to determine membership, we return to the violent ways we sought to leave behind." "But they followed the legal process," another species argued. "They used an old law, but it was still a law. We cannot ignore our own rules." Stepped forward. "Then let me propose something. The trial by combat has technically not ended. Neither Eth nor I have surrendered. We are both still standing. But instead of finishing with violence, what if we finish with something else?" "What do you suggest?" asked Curious. Reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a folded paper. "I brought a proposal. I drafted it before I even came to this station. I knew this trial was never really about combat. It was about whether humanity could think differently than other species expect." She unfolded the paper and began to read. "I propose that the Galactic Council create a new position. A council of mediators, representatives from different species who are trained in conflict resolution, diplomacy, and peaceful problem-solving. When disputes arise between species, we try mediation first before considering any form of combat or sanctions." The chamber filled with murmurs. Species discussed the idea among themselves. Continued. "Furthermore, I propose that trial by combat be officially retired as a legal option. It is a relic of a violent past. If this council truly represents the best of galactic civilization, we should act like it. We should show young species that there are better ways to resolve differences." A representative spoke up. "And who would serve on this council of mediators?" "I nominate myself," said. "I have 50 years of military experience, but I also know when not to fight. I think that combination is valuable." Eth stepped forward, surprising everyone. "I nominate myself as well. Today I learned that there is more to being a warrior than killing. Humans call it being a protector instead of just a fighter. I wish to learn more about this path." The chamber erupted in shocked conversation. A warrior volunteering for peaceful service. It was unheard of. High Arbiter raised her arms for silence again. "These are significant proposals. They require time to consider. But I see merit in both. The human has proven her point. She showed that winning does not always mean defeating your opponent. Sometimes it means changing the entire nature of the conflict." She looked at the assembled council. "I call for a vote. Should humanity keep its seat on the Galactic Council based on the events we have witnessed today?" The vote was called species by species. One by one they answered. The voted yes. The voted yes. The voted no, still believing combat was necessary, but species after species voted yes, convinced by this unconventional approach. When the final tally was counted, 37 species voted yes. Only 6 voted no. Humanity would keep its seat. Felt tears in his eyes. He had spent 3 years working to build respect for Earth, and this one 73-year-old grandmother had done more in 8 hours than he had managed in all that time. Furthermore, said, I open the floor for discussion on the humans' proposals regarding a council of mediators and the retirement of trial by combat. We will debate these matters at our next session. The session ended with species gathering in groups, discussing what had happened. The galaxy had just witnessed something it had never seen before. A warrior who chose not to fight. An old woman who defeated a champion through patience and wisdom instead of strength. 3 days later, sat in a small conference room with and several council representatives. The Council of Mediators had been approved with overwhelming support, had been appointed as its first human member. Eth had also been accepted, though his appointment required special approval from the government. You planned all of this, said, still amazed. From the moment you volunteered, you knew exactly how it would go. Smiled, pulling out her knitting from a bag. Not exactly. I knew Eth would not be able to kill an old woman who treated him with kindness. I knew that refusing to fight would confuse him, but I did not know if he would choose to change. That part was up to him. You gambled with your life on the hope that a warrior had a conscience, said. I gambled on the fact that everyone has a conscience, corrected. It just gets buried sometimes under training and expectations and cultural pressure. My job was to dig it out and let Eth see it for himself. The door opened and Eth entered. He no longer wore his combat armor. Instead, he dressed in simple clothes similar to what wore. He carried a bag of his own. Am I late? He asked. Right on time, said. Did you bring what I asked for? Eth opened his bag and pulled out yarn and knitting needles sized for his larger hands. I still do not understand how this will help me be a better mediator. Laughed. Knitting teaches patience, Eth. It teaches you that some things cannot be rushed. You cannot force the yarn to go faster. You must work at its pace, one stitch at a time. The same is true for conflict resolution. You cannot force people to agree. You must work at their pace, one conversation at a time. She patted the chair next to her. Sit. I will teach you the basic stitch first. It takes practice, but you will get it. Eth sat down, his massive form making the chair look tiny. He held the needles awkwardly in his 4 hands, trying to figure out how to position them. Like this, said, reaching over to adjust his grip. 2 hands hold the needles, 2 hands control the yarn. See, your 4 arms are actually perfect for this. The other representatives in the room watched in fascination as a human grandmother taught a warrior how to knit. It was perhaps the strangest sight they had ever witnessed, but it was also strangely hopeful. Received a message on his communicator. He read it and smiled. The council just officially retired trial by combat. The vote was unanimous. From now on, all disputes must go through diplomatic channels first. Good, said, focused on helping Eth with his first row of stitches. That is how it should be. Violence should always be the last option, never the first. Eth completed his first stitch successfully. His black eyes brightened with accomplishment. I did it. You did, said proudly. See, you are learning already, now do it again and again. Soon it will feel natural. As they worked together in comfortable silence, the galaxy outside continued turning. The story of the human grandmother who defeated a champion without fighting spread across every inhabited world. It became a legend. Parents told their children about the old woman who proved that wisdom beats strength. Teachers used it as an example of thinking beyond obvious solutions. The government, embarrassed by Commander's actions, began to reconsider their cultural emphasis on combat above all else. It would take time, but change had started. Young began to ask questions about whether they could choose paths other than becoming warriors. In the council station, finished the row she was working on and set down her needles. She pulled out the photo of her and looked at it fondly. I did this for them, she said softly, so they could grow up in a galaxy that valued peace over violence, so they would not have to fight wars that could be prevented through understanding. Eth looked at the photo. My children will grow up in that galaxy too, thanks to you. My daughter asked me yesterday if she could learn to be an engineer. I said yes. My sons asked if they must become warriors. I told them they could choose. Smiled and patted his arm. Then we both won, Eth. We changed the future for the better. She picked up her knitting again, the needles clicking softly. Eth picked up his needles too, working slowly but steadily on his first project. Outside the window, ships came and went, carrying species from across the galaxy to the council station. And in a small conference room, a human grandmother and a warrior sat together in peace, knitting blankets for that they would tell stories to about the day everything changed. The day an old woman taught the galaxy that sometimes the bravest thing a warrior can do is choose not to fight. Sat down next to him, her own body shaking slightly from the adrenaline. That is because we trusted each other. You trusted my strategy. I trusted your strength. That is what real partnership looks like, Eth. Not one person dominating another, but both using their strengths to help each other. The door behind them opened, rushed in, followed by Council security forces. Are you both all right? We are fine, said. But Commander needs to be arrested for trying to murder us both during a sacred trial. She reached into her suitcase one more time and pulled out another photo. This one showed a much younger in a military uniform, standing with a group of soldiers. I was the first woman in my unit, she said. The men did not want me there. They said I would be weak, that I would get people killed. I had to prove myself every single day. It was exhausting, but I did it because I believed I belonged there, and eventually they saw it too. She handed the photo to Eth. He looked at it, seeing the young woman who would become the old one sitting before him now. You were a warrior. I was a soldier, corrected. And a strategist. I fought when I had to, but I always looked for other solutions first. That is what made me good at my job. I understood that violence should be the last choice, not the first one. Eth handed the photo back carefully. These are she said. This is why I am here, not to prove humans can fight, to prove we know when not to. Eth looked at the photo, then its face. For the first time in his life, he felt uncertain in combat. This old woman was not an enemy he could defeat with weapons. She was something else entirely. High Arbiter spoke. The combat will begin at dawn tomorrow. Both fighters have until then to prepare. Use the time as you wish. Nodded pleasantly and wheeled her suitcase toward the arena entrance. Rushed after her. Colonel, what are you doing? He whispered urgently. She patted his arm. Something those have never seen before, trust me, and get some rest. Tomorrow is going to be interesting.